We are back with more NFL coverage, and there have been multiple developments here over the course of some time. So, to get straight into it, firstly, Andrew Whitworth and other offensive linemen in the league, like Deion Dawkins especially, were clamoring for an award that rewarded offensive linemen for doing the best job they could throughout the regular season of protecting their respective quarterbacks in the league and also holding down the fort for different run games. And it's safe to say that their efforts, they went balls to the wall for this, man. They literally sat in front of committees to try to get this thing to pass through, and eventually it happened, as they have now created a Protector of the Year award, and it is going to debut at the tail end of this season when NFL Honors rolls around for next year, and it is going to the top offensive lineman, generally speaking. Now, when it did initially come out, I'm all for it. Dawkins, Kelsey, Whitworth fought hard to make this thing happen, and they finally got what they've asked for. It makes perfect sense when you truly think about it as well, because damn near every position outside of, I guess, special teamers truly get recognition out there. You see all the different skill positions get an award every year, but the lunch pail guys, the trench fellas on the front lines don't seem to get much credit outside of all pro nods and things like that. Yet in the culture we live in today, even those at times seem to just not be enough. They want to see you with some type of trophy nowadays. And finally, for the first time ever, O-linemen will be able to hold it. But one of the first questions that came to mind is, how exactly are they going to dole this award out? Are they going to just give it to the top offensive lineman, regardless of position? So just make it like one? Or are there going to be multiple sorts of the award, specifically one for guards, one for centers, and one for tackles? That, even all this time later, has yet to be figured out. I would love to know by some point of time prior to having it debut, but just on the surface, to just have it in the first place is a huge step forward, especially for that position. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see who stakes their claim as the very first winner of this award. In other news, Jim Irsay, the former Colts owner and general manager, apparently he was the youngest general manager in the league at the time of his hiring, and owner as well. He passed away at the age of 65 later in May. And, it's unfortunate. You don't want to see anybody have to go through that. So, all the condolences to his family, loved ones, and all of those who he had relationships with in any capacity, really. Because for his role, you are overseeing a team, but at the same time, those players, in more ways than one, get to know who you are as a person and have definitely gone on the record over the course of the years and even during the aftermath of his passing, just detailing all of the kind of influence that he had on them, all the different conversations he would have with different players in that Colts locker room over the years, and just all of the, I guess, charitable all the charitable things he would do for the Indianapolis community. So those things go a long way. That's what's going to count most. Now, obviously, people will tell you that he is a much more maligned individual. I mean, like, he's definitely had a lot going on, whether it be, multiple, like, DUIs, whether it be multiple investigations into other things. Like, he's not a perfect individual by any means. He definitely had his faults, but in those cases, you have to take the good with the bad and see which outweighs what. And at the end of the day, for those who were closest to him, the good far exceeded the bad. So you can't necessarily define him, especially without him being here to truly defend himself at this point. You can't necessarily define him by his worst moments. You have to look at all that he accomplished. Obviously, he accomplished a lot in football, and he even helped the Colts to win a Super Bowl eventually. But far outside of that, he was able to impact an entire community. There are few people in the world, at least percentage-wise, who can say that they have done that. So you have to credit him with that. For sure. Alright. They finally gave Aidan Hutchinson medical clearance after the just horrific injury he suffered last season during the early season matchup between the Lions and the Cowboys. Again, in that specific game, for the Cowboys to get beaten 47-9, even without Aidan Hutchinson playing through the entire thing, really just shows you that the Lions had that one in the bag anyways. But over the course of the rest of the season, his injury, along with a litany of others on that defensive side of the ball, came back to bite them in the ass in the worst way possible in the divisional round against the Commanders. He's running it back, and he has a very good chance, honestly, a very good look to become the Defensive Player of the Year. He's been a surefire pick. The fact that the Jaguars, I guess you could say that Trayvon Walker is starting to come around a little bit, but Aidan Hutchinson is by far better than him. And to think that they had an opportunity to get him, instead they chose to let him slide down to 2 and get drafted by the hometown team. Like, that's fucking crazy to think about. He's only gotten better every season, and I guess his last season would have been his best if not for the injury. So it's just going to be exciting to see what he does in 2025. He's definitely in Defensive Player of the Year contention when he's healthy. It's just a matter of staying on the field and not having any, underlying setbacks. The Raiders would sign punter A.J. Cole III to a 4-year, $15.8 million contract extension. I think that makes him the richest punter in NFL history. And honestly, it's well-deserved. A.J. Cole III has consistently been one of the best punters in the league since he's entered, and he's been a multiple-time Pro Bowler at this point. So there's really no denying how important he's been to this team, especially when you consider just how frequently over the past 4 years, you can say, they've put that man to work. As consistently either a mediocre offense or one of the worst offenses in the league, they're not even guaranteed to get a whole lot of scoring opportunities in the first place. So naturally, in these games, they're going to have to rely on the leg of A.J. Cole III more often to get them in favorable positions. And he's come through on those occasions. But there are others where even his efforts on that front don't mean shit because the offense is just that atrocious. Now, given how the Raiders have kind of retooled things around, there's a world in which they may not necessarily have to utilize A.J. Cole III all the time. But whenever you need him, he'll be ready. And that's what counts for a contract like this. Especially with him, I think he's like nearing his 30s or in his 30s. I will have to check and post for that. but he is getting older by the minute, and you don't typically see punters get long-term deals like that, even if it is still just a 3.9 million dollar contract, around $3.9 million. David Andrews, the former Patriots center, would retire after 10 seasons in the NFL. And, even he mentioned at this point that he wanted to retire a Patriot, and honestly, he ended up doing so. Spent all 10 seasons there, and it was pretty split. I mean, the first few saw him acquire multiple Super Bowls with the Tom Brady squad, but the latter half has just seen complete and total dysfunction, especially when you look at the quarterback position. I mean, you go from guys like Jacoby Brissett and Cam Newton to then Mac Jones to then Bailey Zappi for a little bit, and that back and forth, and now to Drake May. Too much is happening, and they have not been able to grasp any element of that former glory, which again, it makes sense. You know, a 20-year dynasty that had that kind of influence on the league and on that city in Massachusetts, it's kind of hard to fill those shoes and then be expected to bounce back so quickly into contention. It's not as simple as that. But David Andrews, through it all, remained loyal. I suppose he just felt that it was time to hang up the cleats and move on to something else in his life. The Vikings would agree to a multi-year contract extension with general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and this also makes sense. I mean, over the past few years as well, under his guidance, they have consistently been in contention. They have built solid team after solid team, and it feels like they are on the rise once more to do it again. It all hinges on how they continue to treat Justin Jefferson, because if the quarterback play is still a little bit of an issue, you're certainly going to have to watch out for that. You don't want to have to even think about moving on from Justin Jefferson at all. Not to mention as well, when it comes to some of the defenders, you just want to make sure that they can contribute properly. That's why they were so hesitant to give Van Gonkel a long-term deal. If you think about it, you want to see that consistently. But nonetheless, for Adofo-Mensah to recognize that and still realize that, hey, if he does perform well, he'd still be a great player to have on our team given the season he just had. That's pretty smart stuff. You need a general manager like that who can trust the process and also know when exactly to change the tone rather than just rushing right into blowing the whole thing up. You just can't have that happen for any team to truly generate chemistry. But the Vikings have done that. You saw how they were celebrating with Sam Darnold last season, even if they didn't necessarily go that far. Kevin O'Connell was a very excellent hire, and he's got them on straight. I don't know why people were thinking that he had the potential to be moved on from. But even he shut it down as the season went on. Because why the hell would they let Kevin O'Connell go at that point? Talk about a good team-building coach. And at some point, they're going to be able to do enough to where they'll pay it forward. I couldn't see that happening. But with all these good records, per se, and at least having a chance to be in contention, man, it's time. We want to see Justin Jefferson in the playoffs. we can't keep having these one and dones as well, because that is also something that will likely begin to drive him insane. And that is not an outcome that you would like either in that moment. The Eagles would trade linebacker edge rusher Bryce Huff to the 49ers in exchange for a mid-round pick. I suppose it's fair for both sides. I mean, the Eagles have a strong core of linebackers already, and they just brought in a few more rookie edge rushers / linebackers. So that would make Bryce Huff a little bit expendable at that point, if his play throughout the course of the regular season already didn't. Because when you take it back to the last year's all season, rather, he was one of the bigger hires. He had a very great, his best season to date at this point, year for the Jets, leading up to his departure from there in free agency to Philadelphia. He was a strong all-around edge rusher at that point. So whether one thing happened or the other, what you can't deny is that this man literally dropped off like crazy. I mean, I think I saw something where it said he had like just one sack, few tackles in a fair amount of games as well. They tried to give him the reps, and eventually he got phased out of the lineup because he wasn't performing well. The 49ers do need linebackers. I mean, we still don't know what is up with Devondre Campbell Sr. at this point, but I can't imagine, honestly, that given what he did, they'd bring him back. They did lose Dre Greenlaw as well, which is a very large loss. And I don't think that this trade for Bryce Huff necessarily fills that role, because Dre Greenlaw was more of a coverage guy and sure tackler for them. You don't really know if you can say the same about Bryce Huff right now. But to only give up a mid-round pick for him is a bit of a steal, because the Eagles could have truly settled for way less at that point, to be honest. A mid-round pick is not the worst thing in the world. And also, to add another development, Frank Ragnow would also retire after 11 NFL seasons. And again, another one where he has consistently been a very good offensive lineman over the last decade and change. Is he Hall of Fame worthy? Only time will tell. But he's had a pretty great career. That'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.